bought me a copy of Overwatch 2 years ago for my birthday in one of those, oh yeah, didn't you say you were interested in this? I got it for your birthday. Anyway, I need a duo kind of ways. Like when your boyfriend buys you an Xbox One and a copy of FIFA 2021 for your birthday so that you can play it together once he gets it set up for you and has a few matches with his friends to test it out and then puts it in his office where it will be safe. Still, despite my initial suspicion, I absolutely fell in love with this game. I have no idea what it is. I can be having the worst, most miserable match of my life, having my self-esteem kicked under the fridge like stray bits of dropped ice, contemplating uninstalling Overwatch on a dime, and then the match ends. I watch the play of the game, and the stress drips off me like melted butter, and back into the fray we go, rinse and repeat. It probably helps that it auto-queues. I am sitting at like 500 hours on this game now, and after all this time, I am ready to talk you through my experience. I will rank every hero in the game as it exists in May 2023, from least fun to most fun to play, for me. Bear in mind that heroes become more and less fun to play with patches, so this might be obsolete in a week, but try to see this less as a definitive ranking and more as a free therapy session where I talk through some issues, and there will be a lot of issues. Now, this originally was supposed to be a patron-only video, because I assumed it would be about 10 minutes long, and it's not. So this will now go on YouTube, and since it will be on YouTube, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for making this possible, especially Alice Teeters, Bile Hamar Hofuth, Brendan, Brody Cullen, Duck, Fosh, Julia, Carissa Fulcher, Sam Jones, and Liquid Pliskin for being my highest tier patrons. I appreciate you guys so much, thank you. Now, let's get to work. Are you sitting comfortably? Of course not, since you're not sitting on the FlexiSpot BS11 Pro, the fully adjustable, insanely comfortable, and deliciously ergonomic chair from FlexiSpot. You might remember FlexiSpot from last year, where they sponsored the stream and provided us with an incredible FlexiSpot standing desk with adjustable height. My daily working station and my daily PlayStation 3 station, since I used to play PlayStation 3 sitting on the floor in front of the TV, but it's also my cat's favourite place to have a little nap as well. And this year, I would like to bring you the most gorgeous chair I have ever laid my eyes on. It was very quick and very simple to build, unlike my current chair that was actually so janky that I broke it while building it. This arm has never been connected because it broke while I was building it. The FlexiSpot BS11, by comparison, was up and ready to go in about 30 minutes, which is pretty impressive for me. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these incredible chairs, honestly, they are incredible quality chairs, check out the link in my description for up to 33% off during the brand day sale from the 22nd to the 26th of May, where you can get this classy little chair and the aforementioned classy little desk, complete with a cat nap station with some incredible discounts. So make sure you check out the link in the description if you're looking for some new office furniture and want to invest in something that's actually going to be really good. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the video.
Play of the game.
Here's a character I dislike simply because I do not play her well. As we go through the game, you will be able to gather that I much prefer brawly characters that get right into the action, so Tracer and I got along like a house on fire. What do you mean that's not a negative thing? You are lying. Tracer is an extremely delicate little thing, sitting at a measly 150 HP at time of writing, meaning she can be one-shot by almost anything on the field with relative ease. The thing is, she's a character with a high skill ceiling, so she can't be buffed much more without making her an utter menace in the right hands. Going up against a good Tracer is an exercise in anger management, as she blasts through every squishy on your team in a matter of moments. She's often able to kill most support and DPS characters in a single clip plus melee combo before whipping back off the scene with her rewind ability and regaining all of her lost health in the process. I was often surprised also by just how much they tend to pipe up in match chat. Tracer players have ego. I keep my head down whenever there's one on my team. I hate fighting Tracer. I hate playing Tracer. She's not suited to my playstyle and I have no idea how to handle her. Her trophies are fairly simple: use her sticky bomb 3 times per match and regain a certain amount of health without dying using her rewind ability, but I will be damned if I enjoyed a single second of playing her. I don't have the map awareness, the accuracy, nor the willingness to be patient. That being said, the time I had with her might be part of some miserable abusive cycle, since the second I see an average Tracer on the enemy team, I make it my mission to make her miserable. What can I say? I'm a Tracist. There's no laws against that.
Play of the game.
For my first several hundred hours of Overwatch, I saw Genji as an annoying fly, a wasp in fact, unwelcome at the picnic, buzzing around my head, demanding healing when I play support despite sitting in a different postcode, feeding over and over again. The Genjis on my team always felt like they were crap, whereas enemy Genjis carved through me like cheesecake. Upon trying him for the first time on console, I gained a respect I never anticipated. My first day trying to play Genji marks one of the only days I have shed tears to this game. I have cried on Genji's cold metal shoulder. I do not find him fun, not because he's bad by any means, but because I do not possess the skill to play him well. I can admit that. And playing a bad Genji is very obvious to the rest of your team. He plays off to the side, usually by himself and with 200 HP, so you will need heals, your team will often not be able to see you or reach you, and then they will see you die. Especially if you have supports playing closer to the team, what you leave spawn with is usually all the HP you'll have to play with. From what I can gather, Genji is all about flanking, finishing heroes off when they're retreating on low health, extremely dishonorable kill stealing, and asking for healing. He doesn't do tons of damage unless he's using his ultimate ability Dragon Blade, which can take a long time to charge. While he has fairly extensive maneuverability for an Overwatch character, he can double jump and climb walls, it doesn't really matter when better teams than you can just aim well. They can just hit you. I got my trophies thankfully within a few days of picking him up for the first time, but I left my old deal as a changed woman, a husk of my former self. I knew only heart palpitations and a disabled team chat. I had done it. I was an okay Genji at best. Genji's not here because he's bad, he's like a crop top. He's here because I lack the confidence to pull him off, and I will never go back. I don't know if I dislike D.Va or if I just dislike playing D.Va in Overwatch 2. I didn't seem to have any issues with her whatsoever in Overwatch 1, but now that there's only one tank, I find her an incredibly frustrating character to play, and my teammates find me a very frustrating tank to have. I have been told to switch, many times. Echoes in particular seem to hate me. Consequently, D.Va dropped from a pretty steady choice to a below average in my ratings. I guess it's because back during days when you'd have a main tank and an off tank, I would often play D.Va as the off tank and push slightly ahead of point, approach more from the side, and just be a nuisance. It's better when she's not central to the fight because you are more able to drop D.Va bombs and ambush snipers and interrupt ults. That playstyle wants to follow me into Overwatch 2, but I have to leave it at the door. Put it in the river like Moses in the basket and just let it wash into the reeds. I can't do shit on Overwatch 2. I feel like I'm in the naughty corner, D.Va jail. I can't have my silly fun anymore. D.Va is a very mobile tank, which is less useful now. Being a nuisance is now overextending and leaving your teammates on point by themselves, but playing D.Va as a main tank deprives her playstyle of so much movement, fluidity, and fun. Feathering the defense matrix to catch projectiles and standing in doorways isn't what I got into a flying robot to do, and my playstyle suffers for it, and then my teammates tell me to take my own life. Granted, a good D.Va is a fairly rare one in Overwatch 2. Even D.Vas that get a lot of kills tend to frustrate me with their tendency to fly off and overextend, ironically. You'll see a D.Va behind enemy lines get 4 kills with her bomb, and you're like, well, that's good, and I am happy for you, but also like, we really need you on point. Good D.Va players are no longer necessarily good tanks, often operating on fat DPS terms, which means the remaining team sacrifices a lot of stability when she flies even a few meters ahead beyond the fight.
Better. Oh, look at this.
My opinion of Moira has never been quite high because of her tendency to finish a match with 9,000 damage and 1,000 healing, which for those of you that don't play is extremely bad for a healing character and will often be less than some self-healing tanks and DPS like Roadhog and Soldier 76, which we'll cover later. Yeah, she needs to damage to be able to heal, but the ratios will always be hilariously off, like David Bowie just got high on bath salts and ran into the backline. There are always the typers as well, the shit talkers. I have honestly lost matches because my Moira, half of my support team, was sat in spawn typing in text chat, which on console is as slow as you can imagine it is. They are full sentence pillars. I have had them spend so long bad-mouthing the enemy team that we have lost matches that we were winning. I have had them bleating at players to swap to different characters, whilst at the same time spending so long sucking the life out of the enemy team that they forget to heal anyone, so people just die. Moiras are volatile and easily angered. They've got that DPS ego, which is avoidable. When I picked her her up myself to try, I wasn't much impressed, honestly. Moira's just not for me. Moira is a very brainless hero to play. All you really need to do is hold the left and right triggers to damage and heal, or send little orbs out, so there's no aim required. She's much more about map positioning, keeping her damage high so that her healing output is high, fighting alongside the team so that she can be healing in equal measure, never overextending, and trying to keep an eye on everything going on at once. Coalescence is a good ult, shooting out forwards in a long beam from her hand that can hit several enemies at once, albeit they need to be grouped together since the beam is quite thin. It facilitates some naughty plays at the game, but that'll probably be the most excitement you'll ever experience as a Moira player. The rest of it is just spamming voice lines.
Play of the game.
Sombra is probably the most unique character in the game in terms of function. Also, her real name is Olivia, which is like a name I'd expect to see on the front of a cookbook.
My friends actually call me Liv.
I don't particularly enjoy playing Sombra because it feels mean. Sombra's a bully, she's dishonorable, she's an easy ticket to success. She's unchallenging and not remotely engaging to play, so I got my trophies for her and I got out. Sombra plays entirely separately from the team, walking into the back line and looking for enemies to hack and attack and hopefully kill, before teleporting back to her portable teleporter, which will be placed nearby. She can typically have one hero out of the game at a time, which can be enough to swing a match in many cases, and she's oppressive enough that people will be very antsy looking behind them a lot. And she's usually targeting people who play separate from the team or weaker links, so it feels spiteful even when that's not intended. Sombras are very annoying, and in a game with one less tank, it means 4/5 of the team are extremely susceptible to a talented Sombra. Most heroes can be killed by her within a few seconds after a hack, since their abilities will be disabled for long enough that she can empty a clip or two into their heads, often enough to comfortably kill them. And entire ults can be cancelled by a simple hack, which is on a cooldown of only a few seconds for her. Sombra's main method of getting behind enemy lines is by going invisible, which used to have a timer on it, meaning you had to move quickly, get behind targets, and take chances. It's now a permanent feature, meaning you can just fuck around, and you never really need to find out, so even a bad Sombra will have an extremely easy time doing something that, by rights, should be a little bit harder to achieve than it is. A good Sombra will make your life so miserable, especially if you're playing a specialized character with a low health pool. Genji, Widowmaker, Pharah, etc. But she's an extremely capable counter for any hero, really, even main tanks. And there's very little you can do in the situation you're against a good one. Characters that rely on shields, such as Zenyatta, suffer massively from her ult, the EMP, which hacks every hero within a small radius and strips all of their shields. Zen loses 175 HP off the riff. She can even cancel entire ults. Characters that are below half health are visible to Sombra through walls as well, so she can hunt down weaker characters and make them miserable. I don't know, I never ever play her, and I am never ever happy to see her. Sorry, Liv. Before I played Overwatch, Brigitte was my point of intrigue. I get drawn into a lot of games by the designs of some of their characters, and Brigitte seemed really cool. Cute, buff, pretty, I wanted to be her. So when I picked this game up for the first time, she was the first hero I played, and oh my god, she is so boring to play. Brigitte sits in a really precarious position on the team. She is an extremely capable hero, she's very hard to take down, has proper shields she can use to shield herself and others, on the basis that they stand very close beside her, and has a flail that works simply and quickly. She can whack enemies with it, but she can also knock them flying. Her utility is simple, but she's just the kind of character that cannot survive taking risks whatsoever. You can tell by the state of her play of the games. Every time I see a Brig get a highlight at the end of the match, I know I'm about to watch paint dry for 20 seconds. It's so easy to feed to the enemy team on Brigitte, and that often just involves playing by yourself, peeling away from the team, being aggressive, which are three of my favourite things, unfortunately. I know she's a support character, but still, you shouldn't have given me a huge mace if you didn't want me to use it. She's much more of a defensive player, not to say she can't wipe a team under the right circumstances, but those circumstances will often be defensive ones. I find that the second I start playing fast and loose with Brig, getting brawly and like having fun, is the second I start dying hard and fast in turn. It's so miserable. Once I decided to sit back and play close to my team and just give up on ever getting a bit silly with it, I got my trophies and left her behind, just scrunched up behind the legs of whichever tank we had like a chihuahua in a clown costume, dropping my little med packs, occasionally hitting a naughty flail. Grumpy. Bye, Brigitte. Thanks for introducing me to this awful game.
Ooh.
Sigma isn't really a tank I love to play, mainly because he's so slow. He takes ages to get anywhere on the map, or at least he feels like he does, and every ball blast he does feels like the reload takes forever. His ult does fairly alright damage, but the wind up is so extreme that people get out of the way fast and it takes a long time to charge. I guess it's because of his damage output potential. If his reloads and various charges and cooldowns were faster, I imagine he would be an absolute beast on the battlefield, but they counteract it by making him so slow that I feel fidgety just moving around with him. He feels like trying to run in a dream. My legs aren't doing anything, Sigma, help me. I just feel like I'm constantly reloading as Siggy Balls. It's incessant. I always fuck up placing his shield too. You need to click and hold the trigger to spawn Sigma's shield and move it. The longer you hold it, the further away it moves, but I always go to click it, then click it again to push it ahead, which spawns and despawns it respectively, at which point I apologetically push ahead and pretend I didn't notice while my poor beleaguered team and I wait for the cooldown to finish. He does good damage, but he's slow, and his little black hole ability works so that any damage it absorbs turns into a shield for you, which is nice. The thing about Sigma is that he's never really quite popping off as a character. He can do well, but he never has that team wiping ability, at least in the ones I've played alongside, but maybe that's just my luck. He's more just there to absorb damage whilst everyone else does filthy work. That being said, his propensity for absorbing said damage often means he can push ahead further than the rest of the team, at which point a less astute Sigma will be asking where his heals are when he's on point in the back line. Still, it's nice of him to provide those little toes for free. Thanks, Sigma.
Play of the game.
Zarya is a character that tends to yo-yo really extremely between patches, typically on the basis of how long her bubbles last. So Zarya can bubble herself and or a teammate, and any damage done to that bubble boosts her own attacking power. When you're fighting Zarya, you can pop the bubble, but you have to be absolutely sure that you can kill her, since you'll have given her a quick shot of sicko juice and it will not be long before she sticks that cannon up your trouser leg and pins the trigger down with a hair tie. Zarya can kick your ass, your whole ass, they really can, and then she'll get nerfed in the next update and be completely useless, or near enough so that picking her becomes an objectively bad idea, since you only have one slot for tanks now, and you can't afford to waste it on throw picks going up against some of the most meta boys in the game. Yeah, I realise that I really do have a chip on my shoulder about this one tank thing, but bear with me. Also, Zarya, in Dead by Daylight terms, is a bit of an M1 killer, which means she has a playstyle so simple that it's quite inflexible. Beyond the bubbles, which while they are an active task, give a lot of passive buffs, she can either shoot in a beam or with little arching bombs, so there's not a lot you can do as her. The beam is the thing that's boosted by the bubble damage. God, does this even make sense anymore? Whereas the bombs are just there more to fill space while you're charging up. You either charge up fast, do good damage, and roll through a team, or you struggle getting started and get wiped hard by a 2-ply Reaper. It's very yes or no. Overall, Zarya's here because she's never just quite that fun to play as or against. She's either so easy to kill or play that she's boring, or she's so OP to play as or to fight against that she's boring. Sorry, Zarya.
Of the game.
At my elo, it's definitely rare to run into a really good Echo, including me, when I play her. I offer the experience of a truly average Echo to my teammates and enemies. I'll hop in, get 12 kills, die 6 times, only ever doing spectacular damage in the event that I bounce down into the elo below, at which point I get booted back up with feeling into the elo 3 floors above and get the shit kicked out of me for 15 minutes. She's got good utility, but she's so flimsy that, combined with the fact that she sticks out like a sore thumb and flies, means I tend to get wiped out by whichever DPS has their eyes open, which is most of them, and I wipe other Echo players out in turn in the same way. Echo's main thing is her duplication ability, her ultimate, which will charge 2 or 3 times per match on an average day, and her trophies involve separately using it twice successfully without dying. For a seasoned Echo, that's child's play. For me, that was an exercise in palm sweating stress, heart palpitations, and an irritability I have previously associated only with pre-exam nerves. I take this game way too seriously. I started going for Echo's trophies shortly after she got the major nerf to her ult, giving her something like 15 seconds to charge and use an enemy's ultimate ability before the timer ticked down and she returned to her normal form. This meant that I usually had to be starting a team fight to have enough people to hit or heal to charge super fast in the time allotted, but it also meant that the entire enemy team would be present, and these enemy teams burn you down hard when they see you duplicating, since they obviously don't want you to ult at them. Even then, especially if I accidentally duplicated someone whose ult takes a while to charge, I wouldn't even hit the damage threshold to ult before the timer ran down, much to the eye-rolling annoyance of my teammates. What can I say? Lower your expectations. As I I started to work through the armada of DPS characters, I came to the humble realization. Characters with projectile drop-off make me feel very stressed, and Hanzo is no exception. Hanzo's the kind of character with a very high skill ceiling and quite a high skill floor. The best Hanzos will sonar arrow a corner so that any enemy walking past will be visible early enough that Hanzo can land a perfect headshot just as they peek around the corner. He'll burn a tank down with storm arrows without a word and then disappear into the night. They go 27-0. Their own team will have no idea where they are at any one time. They never ask for healing because they simply don't need it. Then anybody below that sits in this weird mire of okay Hanzo. Walks in, gets 15 kills, never says a word, but they're probably having heart palpitations every time a Widowmaker shot goes whizzing past their beard. Does enough damage to keep you on your toes, but rarely gets the headshots, and if they do, they probably pee a little bit with the hype. Uses their ult, the Dragon Strike, and gets like 1 kill at the most. That's me. I'm an okay Hanzo. The relief about Hanzo is that, unlike a lot of characters whose utility tends to hinge quite closely on their ult, see Zenyatta's Transcendence, which is his most efficient and useful way of healing more than one person at more than 1 tick per minute, his success never really relies on his skill at whacking down a Dragon Strike, particularly with the insane telegraph he has, screaming his voice cue, doing a little somersault and then standing perfectly still while a pair of dragons go flying away from the tip of his arrow. It's hardly subtle. This move never seems to do more than just split the enemy team down the middle, which could well have a lot to do with the level I'm playing at, and yeah, it is probably that. I mean, he's good, he's not my cup of tea, but he's good. We're starting to move into the more neutral area of this list now, and we bring that section to a boil with everyone's favourite dad, Torbjorn. Torbjorn is just easy. He's easy to play against. Sure, sometimes you get run through by a Torby, sometimes you run through as a Torby, but mostly he's a middle-of-the-road character who's an easy choice in a pinch and can be called on as needed to add a jolly atmosphere to any fight. His movement is fairly standard, he has little to no actual manoeuvrability beyond basic walking and jumping, but his head is submerged in his shoulders and lost in his beard, and there are pistons on each of his shoulders, meaning headshots are very tricky on Torbjorn. You never quite know where you're shooting. I find you always have to aim lower than you think, and then you're suddenly aiming too low. It's a nightmare. His bullets have drop off and he's not a hit scan, so while he does crazy damage, he's not brilliant against flying enemies unless you can predict them, which sometimes you can and you feel amazing, but more often you and your turret will get blown to smithereens by a Pharah. But mostly he's manageable and stress-free, which is sometimes exactly what you need. That being said, his turret is an issue when I'm playing squishier characters. It has perfect accuracy and hits consistently, so it will melt any low HP mobility-based character. It was the bane of my purgatory as Tracer. It's stunning how much damage it can do in only a few direct hits. Still, I don't think there's ever been a moment where a Torbjorn has made me rage. How could you ever be mad at him? Look at his cheeks.
D.Va.
As we reach neutral ground, we're going to start encountering characters that I love to play, but I hate to play against, and vice versa. The Ice Witch comes later, don't you worry, but for now, Symmetra. I haven't played loads of Symmetra, she has really easy trophies, so I was contractually done with her quite fast, but also her playstyle didn't really interest me enough to proceed with it for long. She does a lot of damage, but her teleporters are kind of basic, and yeah, you can burn people to dust with her turrets, but she's just not really my thing. Sorry, Simmy. And most of my opinions of Symmetra tend to come from playing alongside and against them. And my gosh, they are some of the sweatiest, meanest people ever. Sim players are either quiet because they're focusing so hard that they've not noticed their bedroom curtains have caught fire, or they are vocally cruel. These are the people who type straight into match chat, not team chat, just so the enemy team can also see you getting dressed down. Sims like the spectacle of a good lecture. They have a humiliation kink, except it's you who's being humiliated very much against your will. I mainly play quick play, although I have dabbled in ranked, but these sim players will treat quick play matches like they're playing top 500. They're in Spawn telling people to switch, shouting at the healers, demanding certain roles play certain characters, and they'll either have 3 kills or 30, no in between, sounding off with their plugged-in keyboard even on console, while their turrets get another assist. They're never crass enough to start doling out kill yourself. They're not like that. They're not toxic to be toxic. They're just teachers' pets who want perfection and rarely offer it themselves. In quick play, bitch, I'm gold 1. Leave me alone.
Oh. Well, this is good because...
At time of writing, Lifeweaver has been on the scene only a few days, so this is the section you need to take with the biggest pinch of salt, because as we all know, a new hero is a broken hero. The ranked cretins haven't had a chance to grab this man by the lily pink wings and drag him down to hell with them yet, down to the ult combos and the meta and the min-maxing and the strategy, so right now he's in a no man's land of undiscovered potential. He's ours. And one thing I have learned since playing Lifeweaver is that he is fucking terrifying. I try and keep my head down in Overwatch, I don't flame, I'm not toxic. I might drop a GG see at the end of a particularly fun fight, but the last thing I want is the ire of anyone on the map directed at me. And playing Lifeweaver is one of the most disruptive, annoying things you can do if you do it poorly. I can only imagine his designer piecing him together on an old operating table, illuminated by the lightning crashing through the curtains. Lifeweaver is an act of evil. Lifeweaver is all about positioning. Not himself, no, you. Lifeweaver can grab any ally on the map and pull them towards him. The good Lifeweavers, as I've learned, yank you out of trouble when you realise you're in a pinch, pulling you away from an ult, letting you live another day. A bad Lifeweaver sees you're about to drop a 4-man high noon, the best play of your life, tears streaming down your cheeks, and he just yanks you back towards him. Why? Because it's funny? You're laughing? I've just burst into tears into my garlic bread and you're laughing? Lifeweaver is a monumental responsibility to bear. He's there for people with good experience with the game, who know the difference between a risky rewarding play and a straight up feed, the people who have the awareness to whisk someone out of an instant death, the people who have text chat turned off, as you can bet I will when it's my turn to play him, because if there's one thing I fear more than the enemy team, it's my team.
Play of the game.
The first time I played a little Hammie, it was actually as Echo. During one particularly heated match, I accidentally copied the enemy team's Hammie whilst aiming for something else nearby, maybe a Pharah, can't remember, somebody airborne. He just came out of nowhere and bam, hamster time. I didn't even know how to move or what to do, so I panicked and tried to roll away, unsuccessfully of course, until the enemy team burned me down. It was very embarrassing. Nowadays, Wrecking Ball is very hard to play well, since this whole deal involves jumping right into the enemy team, throwing them in the air, activating his little adaptive shield and going beep 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 beep. I feed a lot as Wrecking Ball, despite my best efforts, but I'm certainly not alone. When we're getting to the end of a game and our tank picks ball, I understand it's for the speed and mobility, but when we start a game and our tank picks ball, baffling, beyond me. I assume it's some strange intention to throw, but once or twice in my several hundred hours on this game, I have seen utterly disgusting Wrecking Balls roll through teams with ease, so it really depends. A good Wrecking Ball really does seem to be 1 in 100, especially on console, where piloting him can often feel like walking through tar. Wrecking Balls are only really an issue when they're in your backline, and you're also in your own backline, playing a squishy. He'll hop in and burn through you and then fly off again before anyone can come and help, but beyond bothering Widowmakers, their utility seems to be very limited in Overwatch 2, particularly since they're as hard to heal as they are to hit. Hammies are difficult to keep alive at the best of times, but they so often lose line of sight that they're basically on their own once they're out of spawn, unless they're the kind that patiently rolls over to you and sits quietly expecting a round of healing.
Oh, please. Flip the hell.
Doomfist is a character that I find really fun, but I'm also very shit at. I really can't put into words how truly bad I am at piloting a Doomfist around the field. He plays remarkably differently than so many other characters in the game, although he was even more unusual in Overwatch 1, when playing him felt like playing an entirely different game altogether. Doomfist is like mostly melee, sort of. He has a shotgun fist gun thing that fires 4 shots before things start getting a bit sad, and it's such a scattershot that it can hardly be considered a ranged attack. He can do a jumping slam that also propels him forwards, and he can block. Whilst blocking, he absorbs any damage he takes and converts it into damage dealt for his big old punch, which knocks enemies back and stuns them. I think the thing about Doomfist is that he is all about managing his cooldowns and understanding the situations in which he works best. Jumping straight into an enemy team will mean death, unless you jump into them in precisely the correct way, doing your attacks in the correct order, and staggering your cooldowns properly. Sometimes I jump in and I shag the team. Sometimes I jump in and I'm dead before I hit the ground. I have no idea why. Sometimes I'll have the best match of my life, sometimes I'll play so badly that the Ashe on my team, and it is always the Ashe, will announce tank diff, and I won't be able to argue with her. Who even knows anymore?
Play of the game.
I originally hated Ana, or rather I hated the idea of playing her. I had only ever played alongside Ana, and from what I saw she seemed incredibly boring. Standing all the way back, staring through the scope all day, plugging heals into Reinhardt, and dropping a late nano on a Cassidy whose high noon has just finished. And whenever she healed me she would tell me to stop whining, which only made me want to whine even more. Ana seemed passive, and I was not interested in playing as some hooded emo chick hanging back in the corner. Turns out she's fun, once you get the ball rolling anyway. Ana's main function is that trusty old sniper I mentioned earlier, but her distance from the fight means that she can also keep an eye out for enemy ultimates, which she can use a sleep dart to quickly put a stop to. Which is as funny on my team as it is infuriating when she's on the opposite team. It's hair-tearing, but you just have to shrug. The best moments are when you sleep a Reaper out of his ult and start begging your team to come help kill him, and they don't hear you, and he wakes up and puts a shoe up your back door. The distance also allows you to check on other characters and their ult charge, or see them running into particularly risky situations, at which point you can bestow them with Nano, a sacred ability that every Genji will utterly lose his rag over if he doesn't get given it every time he demands it, even if you give it him once and he gets no kills with it, or every time he doesn't demand it and just assumes he will get it. Sometimes he'll get upset that you haven't given it to him and you'll have to gently remind him that you haven't even got it yet. The best part of Nano is that everyone who gets it immediately freezes up with fear and gets no kills anyway. It's like stage fright. You just see a Cassidy up on a balcony with piss running down his leg. Her sniper shots heal friendlies and damage enemies in equal measure, and she can use a grenade in a similar vein, which does big heals on friendlies but applies the anti-status to enemies, preventing them from being healed for like 10 seconds. It's quite a while. One of the worst mistakes I see a fellow Ana make is not having her friendly aim assist cranked up. So she'll finish the match with like 60 healing and a furious team when she can't actually heal anyone because she can't hit them. Going against a good Ana is a nightmare. She has a very specific posture, so it's really hard to hit headshots on her, and the better Anas will sleep you right out of your ult just when you're about to hit a 4-man noon. This woman has made me scream, and not in a good way.
Play of the game.
Sojourn's down here because I hate fighting her, and I am pretty neutral on playing her. Unlike some of the other characters in this list, she's not really a it's funny when I do it kind of character. She's a bit stiff and a bit mindless, and I don't want to spend 6 hours learning how to do sliding charged headshots, although I'm sure that would be very useful. She has a railgun that charges as you do damage, and once you hit a threshold of damage, you'll be able to do a charged shot, enough to headshot most players on the team. A good Sojourn will hit you 2 or 3 times, then obliterate you with a charged headshot. It takes the best of them about 3 seconds to kill any squishy on the field from any distance. The issue with Sojourn is, as with Kiriko and Rammatra, the 2 other characters released with Overwatch 2, the teams seem to have a huge issue with balancing them for all levels of play. Sojourn was one of those characters that could 1v5 an entire team in the right hands. Sojourns will either be okay or they will be unapologetically cracked, and either way, one of you is having a rough time. She's easy to pick up and refine, and the pipeline is a smooth one. Her skill ceiling is quite definitive. She doesn't have lots of room to grow. Once you're good with her, you're kind of messy with her. She's not a character you can especially flourish in. She's like Soldier if he had massive muscular thighs. You shoot people, you know, it's easy.
Play of the game.
Pharah has probably one of the coolest designs of the more Soldier-branded characters in this game, but her reputation was pretty muddied for me because the first few I met would drop every slur imaginable in chat. Yeah, most matches go by without error, but I knew that if there was a slur, particularly a homophobic one, it was always a Pharah. Even if we were doing well, even if we were winning, those players are just bubbling over with rage that can never be calmed, which is weird because she's really fun to play. I was nervous picking up the sticks, mainly about what I might become after playing a few matches of this character, but once you have a handle on feathering your rocket boosters to stay afloat for long periods of time, and then once you get a handle on aiming while you're doing it, she's very easy to play and very fun to play as well. It's even better when there's a Mercy about who's willing to boost your health and damage while you play, but since this is Overwatch and it's every man for himself, a Pharah Mercy duo usually doesn't take place without some prior arranged sexual contract. Some give and take, so to speak. So I'd never just walk into a match as Pharah expecting a damage boost without having a folder of feet pictures to bargain with. I finished Pharah's trophies quite fast, and while I haven't spent a lot of time with her since she's not my favourite, she is fun. My favourite Pharahs are the ones that don't seem to know you can fly and just run around with the comically large boosters on their shoulders like they're carrying a car bonnet on their back. I often wonder if I should say something, but I don't want to get called a slur.
Play of the game.
Roadhogs are a weird one. When they're on my team, I'm like, oh shit, oh no. Roadhogs on your team mean you're going to have this massive dickhead running around, demanding healing and all the resources you can muster, not doing loads of damage beyond the occasional hookshot, no shields, soaking up damage like a motherfucker, charging the enemy team's ults until they're popping off every 45 seconds and wiping the rest of you off the face of the planet. With no protection and no real tank in the seat, the supports are exhausted, keeping the Roadhog alive. They struggle to juggle the needs of the DPS die, the support die, and the Roadhog is on point with his battle inhaler demanding more healing. Insane. I mean, I do get it. I played Roadhog for a good while and he is quite fun to play depending on which nerf he's on the receiving end of. Landing a hookshot is naughty fun, and pinning a Lucio that's been giving me trouble all match under the weight of my whole hog is a welcome relief. He stays alive for a while, and with his inhaler, his survivability is solid. Still, anyone around you is absolutely at the whim under your penchant for feeding when you play Roadhog. He is a selfish tank, and it is actually really annoying when my tank picks Roadhog. But when Roadhogs are on the enemy team, I'm like, awesome, ult charge. Now we move on to the evil Ice Witch. Mei sits in that fantastic sweet spot of it's toxic and shit and so unbelievably rude and disgusting when you do it and you're a bad player and you're throwing the game, but it's really funny when I do it. And I don't even mean that for enemy Meis. I mean, I do mean that for enemy Meis for sure, but I also mean it for friendly Meis. The Meis on my team are worse than the Meis on the enemy team somehow, because they're both as bad as each other in reality, but mine are worse. So Mei's very brawly. She slows and damages with her spray, and she can toggle her pistol to do a drop-off range projectile attack. She does a stunning amount of damage, and when she feeds a little bit too hard, she can freeze herself and regain health over like 15 seconds or so. So if you're on the enemy team, you can just knock on the window and wait for her so you can smack her across the chops when she bursts out. Mei can sprout ice walls from the floor, which take a surprising amount of damage to destroy, and these are great because you can wall enemies out, but you can also wall your friendlies in. And there's nothing better than being the one friendly on the wrong side of the wall when that comes bursting out of the floor. Mei's always fumbled the bag on this one. Someone always ends up being sacrificed to the bloodthirsty team you've just penned into a single room. Getting locked in a team of people is enough to make me tut with pure English rage, but when I play Mei and accidentally lock our only tank in a room with an ulting Reaper, I really cannot help but laugh. Whoops, good luck. I never said I was here to help. See you in spawn.
Play of the game.
Every time I see a Bastion in a game, I always assume someone's little brother has just picked up the game while they're waiting for their older sibling to get back from school. So they walk in like beep beep boop and shoot their little bullets and do their best. Even if you're doing badly, sat on round 3 after 2 of the most miserable battles of your life, one final chance to tip the scale, they'll be like beep 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 beep, and it's all worthwhile. Either that, or they are Widowmakers who have tilted off Widowmaker within the first 5 minutes, pushing the point with a mercy pocket and holding R2 down for 18 minutes. You know shit's gotten real when a Widow will spam shit in chat and then return as a Bastion. You know someone's put a hole through their drywall, right into the cold emptiness of their adjoining parents' bedroom where they're busy having sex. Then things are a bit more miserable. Everyone seems to hop on Bastion when they're annoyed, except me, since I'm a beacon of tranquility and I hop onto Junkrat instead. Bastion's got a new ult in Overwatch 2 that's 3 artillery shots from above, and despite the gravitas, they're not really very useful. I remember going for the trophy where you have to get 3 kills in one for quite a while, and very often you could land some pretty direct sustained hits and still not have much luck, so it's definitely got a bit more fanfare than it deserves. Still, Bastions are a delight. They're always in good moods, probably because they're playing a bit brainless. I like Bastion for that. They're brainless in the sense that if you stop paying attention to your precise positioning and damage for even a moment, bits of you will go skittering across the floor like pistachio nutshells when my mum empties the Hoover.
Play of the game.
Mercy's another hero that requires less focus on aim and quantity, but more on map positioning and prioritizing who needs help and when. And the plus side of playing Mercy is that everyone loves you. It's like thanking the bus driver. Sometimes if you say hello to the enemy team, they say hello back and they leave you alone, and sometimes they fly through you like a battle ram. Still, she's got some tech. The Mercy jump, for example, where you crouch as you're zooming over to someone. If you time it right, Mercy will fly into the air and you can guide her around and let her float down in whichever way you prefer. And it means you're a little bit harder to hit, but more importantly, it makes you feel cool and like a good Mercy, and morale helps. It also makes you a better target for a cracked hit scan, so, you know, the Lord yeeteth and the Lord yoinketh away. Same for Mercy's ultimate ability, Valkyrie, which gives her flight for a short while and increases her health restoration abilities, both on herself and others, but when you're on the enemy team, this isn't really relevant unless you're playing Widow, and you suddenly see this crazy yellow moth screaming over at you. I have absolutely no idea what to do with the Battle Mercy. They always kill me. The worst part of playing Mercy is that a lot of the children of Overwatch don't really ever play support, and they certainly wouldn't play a girly character like Mercy, so a lot of people don't seem to know quite how she works. Mercy heals consistently but fairly slowly. She's better for hopping between smaller characters. If she tries to sit on a tank, she won't normally be able to keep up with the sheer torrent of damage they take, and she will probably spend so much time healing that other players die, so sometimes you end up with a tank who wants a slutty little Mercy pocket and 3 squishies who are just running back from spawn every 12 seconds. I've been on the receiving end of that too, watching a Mercy pocket a Reinhardt all the way through to the point and leaving all of us to get farmed at spawn by the enemy team's DPS. I've had a Mercy a 5-minute walk away, watching us get camped by echoes and soldiers telling me to switch. You switch, you fluorescent dickhead.
Play of the game.
Junkerqueen can be a really hard character to make work if you don't have support keeping a close eye on you, being that her entire moveset is geared specifically towards close quarter combat and her health pool is one of the lowest of all the tanks, if not the lowest. She has no way of creating physical shield to protect the rest of the team, and although she does have a battle cry ability that allows her to briefly boost her HP and the HP of everyone in a small radius, it is slow to recharge. As the tank, you're often the focus of the push forward too, leaving you vulnerable to any full frontal onslaught and making it hard to just nip away for a carton of cigarettes or a med pack. If you've got some attentive support, she's an awesome brawling character. All of her attacks except her gun inflict various wounds on enemies, and if you manage to inflict 7 at once, you do get a nice trophy, which I have got at time of writing. The issue is that inflicting wounds causes health to drain, so often you'll lose them as you go, especially if the rest of your team are piling on as well. Also, I think the trophy is bugged, but I don't care enough to check. Hopefully not, or I'll have wasted a lot of time. Junkerqueen is also suited to playing corners, which are two playstyles that don't feel like they marry well at all, which leaves like King's Row as her best map to play on in those thin city streets. Less space, less line of sight, more wounds. As long as the enemy team don't have airborne DPS, which you'll really struggle to hit, especially if your own DPS are reluctant to help out. There's a lot of keys to this success, but some people make her work really well.
Yes, Baptiste!
Baptiste is an unfortunate character where, in the world of you can be wherever you want to be, the designers elected to make a bunch of men in armor. Reinhardt, Torbjorn, Soldier 76, Cassidy. When I can be anything I want, I don't know why I would choose to be a bloke in armor. And it's a shame because he does great damage. He's got good consistent healing potential, he's got that super jump that he can do where, if you time it just right, the enemy team will run past you, like you're a Looney Tune hiding on the ceiling fan. In fact, everything about Baptiste is lovely and unassuming. I've only ever seen a Baptiste mentioned in chat once by either team, and it was a snippy reminder from our fairly already toxic tank to heal them, which he was already doing very competently. I guess there is a bonus to being just a dude in armor that lets you slip under the radar of God's most irate D.Va players. Despite his quiet presence on the field, it's not unusual to get completely wrecked by one, and to have your best ult utterly sabotaged by his immortality drone. He is surprisingly formidable for a man with a gun that farts water balloons. His amplification matrix amplifies damage and has a bafflingly difficult trophy attached to it. I remember back in the day when I picked up Overwatch 1 for the first time, I was like, his trophy is really rare. I'll get that one done and out of the way first, and then I'll crack on with the other characters, and I think I ended up playing about 30 hours of Baptiste before I gave up. He is far too difficult. I have no idea what the designers were thinking with that. My favourite thing about Bap's ult is that I will try to put the amplification matrix down in the best possible place for maximum angles and visuals of the enemy team, but people in my elos either get this weird object permanence thing, where they walk around the matrix to shoot because it's in the way, or the enemy team all just disappear, burrowing into the ground like moles. The most I ever seem to get out of a Bap window all game is like 1000 damage. I'll never be a top Bap.
Play of the game.
When I first tried my hand at the Forbidden Cowboy, I bounced off him pretty hard. His default crosshair is a bit fucky, it's a circle with a dot in it, and the circle feels like it doesn't align properly with where the gun fires, so I found it confusing and frustrating, and I'd have to quit the match early when I realised I had 0 kills and 300 damage almost 10 minutes into a fight. Whoops, skill issue. All it took was a swap to the basic dot, and now me and Cassidy have the best time. One thing of note is his Sticky Grenade, an absolutely stupid ability that I do not want them to nerf until I have finished getting the associated trophy, 2 kills in 1 throw, way harder than it seems, and I find its main usage is trading a kill with the enemy that just took your life. Nothing funnier than a pair of Cassidys killing each other on Sticky Grenade delay. I'm pretty sure it does something like 150 damage, which when you consider most characters sit at a firm 200, is quite a significant deletion machine. It's rare you don't get a kill with it, unless you're a character with the ability to teleport or wraith, as it's called when you go ghostly. You basically have a nice 3-second warning of your impending death, which is as useful as it is welcome. It takes a little bit of skill to play, but good skill to master. Before I picked up the cowboy himself, I always ended up falling foul to the ones who flanked and did insane damage, getting in and out quickly and always killing 1 or 2 on the way. When I tried this, I fared irredeemably badly, embarrassingly badly. You do need to be a good noodle to get away with that. Usually I just play alongside my tank like a normal hound and come away with good kills. Not perfect kills, of course, never perfect. Evaded forever by a 4-man high noon.
Play of the game.
I cried during my first Ashe match, bizarrely, which you wouldn't expect considering how high she is on this list, but yes, I'd not really touched any sniper-esque characters at the time. I was terrified of Widowmaker, but we've not seen her yet on this list, which is definitely a positive thing, and I don't think I'd bothered with Hanzo yet, so Ashe was my first step into precision-based shooting, and man, it was rough. I loaded Ashe up in a quick play match trying to get to grips with her a little bit, and I just couldn't hit anything. I really only needed a match or two to get into the swing of things, and then I thought I'd be fine, but my first 10 minutes or so as Ashe left me with less than 1,000 damage and a Roadhog that was going ballistic at me in text chat until I burst into tears. I am very delicate. I think the worst thing about performing badly in Overwatch is that you know the abuse is coming, but how else are you supposed to learn? You know, you can use the training grounds, but it's not even remotely the same as actual fights, so quick play tends to be the best way, but man, I had to go stand in the kitchen, I was so stressed. After that, she suddenly clicked for me, and I absolutely loved playing as her. It wasn't long before me and Ashe started getting play of the game, which is an insane turnaround when you think about it. Turns out she's super fun and fluid to play, does good damage, but stays far enough back from the fray that you don't have to rely on support and brawl all the time. Ashe is a great counter to Widowmaker, being that she, in the right hands, is essentially a better Widowmaker, particularly with a Mercy pocket, able to use her scoped rifle to headshot enemies, but her hip fire for melee. If you're going against a really good Ashe, you're basically just going against an above average Widowmaker with more functionality, and a turret she can summon that will wipe out any squishies that dare peek. That's Bob, by the way, an ult I love more so for his cuteness than his utility, this blessed little robot butler who runs in and does his best. It's really kind of him.
Play of the game.
Kiriko, despite being a support, is a monster in the right hands. I have definitely played a few matches where both my team and somehow the enemy team have both been utterly dominated by their own Kiriko. Always the ones with the crazy 15-pound skins who sprint in, headshot everyone, and still somehow manage to finish the game with 22,000 healing. Kiriko throws kunai in one hand, which do spicy damage when you land a headshot, and these little healing papers with the other hand, which have travel time. And there's nothing funnier than watching them drift gently over the body of a teammate who just died because you didn't heal them in time. And when I say funny, I mean dread-inducing. I mean post-it note over team chat inducing. Kiriko's biggest tool is her pot thing, which I utterly failed to get the hang of during my time with her, which I think is mainly because of her on-screen prompts. Since allies are available to be healed, they will have a blue targeting square on them, and my brain thinks, oh yeah, I throw pot at square, but the blue targeting thing is where her little papers will aim. So I throw the pot, assuming it will hit the blue square, and it just goes past and sometimes even through the teammate, lands somewhere nearby, administering none of the benefits to anyone. You're actually supposed to throw it on the floor at the feet of teammates who need it. It's really useful. It cleanses status effects entirely, but also grants a few seconds of invincibility to anyone it hits, and you can even do knockback with it. If you time it perfectly, you can survive a lot of insta-kill attacks you wouldn't otherwise be able to survive, and the cooldown is extremely generous. Another UI confusion with Kiriko is that she can teleport through walls, and as with the papers, you know that you can teleport through walls because allies will have the little blue square aiming indicators on them, which at first had me thinking I could heal through walls. It's all one big clusterfuck of confusion at first until you learn what Kiriko can and cannot do. Overall, she's good fun. I do wish you could mute her voice lines though, and same for Sojourn. I feel like the two of them got utterly shafted by their own writing. They're both so cringe to listen to. I don't know how Junkerqueen got away with such a good script, but bless you, Kiriko. I don't care about your bike. Lucio is a character I wasn't super interested to try at first. The whole roller skating on walls thing seemed a bit technical, so I thought I'd give it a go later. Later, I was too scared to try him because I'd moved up through matchmaking enough that I was scared people would shout at me for playing him badly. Eventually, I waited to play in a 5-stack with some friends, only leaving the enemy team to shout at me if they really felt they needed to, and they didn't, which was good. It's outrageous how much of my time with this game I spent worried that people would shout at me. It is for good reason though. All Overwatch players, including me, could do with getting out a bit more. The hardest thing for me about playing Lucio is merely remembering to wall ride. Lucio can skate along walls whilst shooting, and yeah, it's not crucial that you do this, but it helps you avoid getting taken out by snipers since you have to play in close proximity with your team, and it helps you stall points whilst waiting for everyone to get back from spawn. The issue is that you have to be concentrating on wall riding, jumping from wall to wall, keeping an eye on what's going on around you, and shooting, which is like way too much brain work. My brain gets very stressed. No work when I think about more than one thing. Beyond that, I try my best, but I'm not excellent. I speed my team in from spawn, I boost my speed to get get them going quick, I heal my team, I boost my heals, I use my ult, sound barrier, to give them lots of armor, but I always forget that it has a cast time, so I very often die while casting it, which is very embarrassing. Lucio definitely has a max amount of healing output too. There's only so much you can do most of the time, and sometimes you just don't out-heal the damage, which is a shame. Despite my terror of playing Lucio, he is one of those characters you can pick up easily and play mindlessly, with enough available tech that he can be a bit of a beast if you put in the time to learn him, and I have not yet put in the time.
Play of the game.
I always knew I liked Rami Batty. Yeah, he's an edgy version of Zenyatta, and all of his voice lines sound like a workshop session for a Bullet for My Valentine album, but he's my blessed Pookie Wookie. He is Mummy's special little boy and she loves him very much. At first, people didn't quite seem like they knew what to do with him. A lot of people mocked him for his quite complex combat style. He has different forms with different attacks, low HP but with ranged abilities, and a defensive melee form with the ability to guard. Yeah, cowboys shoot gun and throw grenade, Space Monkey use shield and buzz gun, Big Tin Man uses shield and swings axe, but Rami is still fun despite his complexity. In fact, his complexity is what really suited me. I mean, when I panic, I'll just press every button, so my Ram ends up switching between forms like a stop-motion animation, but on the whole, he is really adaptive, and his defensive form is deceptively tough. Someone's about to hit a fat high noon, you can just scrunch up like a disgruntled caterpillar, sit on their face and soak up the damage, no issue. Once people started to realise that his ult initially would carry on forever as long as he was within sucking range of another enemy character, he ended up being front and centre of every team. He could and would destroy entire teams single-handedly, and even after a few much-needed nerfs, he can carry a fight and fend for himself very capably. My favourite thing is just to pop his ult, then guard and watch everyone else get sucked to death around me. I love my little Rami bear. Soldier 76 is not just a simple and dependable choice, but he's also my brother's favourite character to play, so you can rest assured I've had every single one of his voice lines barked down my ear, both in-game and in real life, during those tense moments when we encounter each other in the kitchen at 2 AM, and I see he is literally eating my chow mein, the prick. Locking the legs is something I only tend to do nowadays when I have no idea how else to approach a fight. Like, I've been countered by Sombras, cracked Tracers, backline camping Reapers, on all my other choices, picked off by Echoes and sat on by Divas, and I'm despairing at spawn, wondering what else to choose. And there's always Mr. Morrison, unless my brother is playing him. Soldier 76 is fun because he can be played fairly averagely at any level of concentration, but he has enough of a skill to him that you can really knuckle down and get kills if you want to. He's like a Bastion, especially when damage boosted, except smaller and less of an obvious target, just an old man running around on the battlefield. What's he doing here? We'd better ignore him so he can find his way home. Oh no, he swept our team. They never suspect the old man. Soldier 76's NPC energy often means he can get away with a cheeky flank and use his tactical visor, his ultimate ability for those of you who don't play but are watching more out of morbid intrigue, which acts as an aimbot. Damage boosted, or as I found, speed boosted, you can mow down a good few of the enemy team before they turn around and swat you like a fly. My favourite Soldier 76ers are the ones called Daddy, and they're always duoed with a Mercy called Daddy's Kitten, who follow him around like a toddler at a summer fair using the blue beam on him. But when I play Soldier and I get my own little kitten, the blue beam always makes me so anxious and scared that I'm suddenly the worst soldier on the planet. Sorry, Mercy.
Play of the game.
Little boy Winston! I love Winston. I never really got much of a chance to play him back in Overwatch 1, and I was scared to make use of him in 2 because he's all about jumping into the enemy team, dropping his shield to separate them from each other, doing tickle damage, and then getting out again. Nowadays, there's a good chance that an approach like that will result in you getting melted, but I risk it all anyway, for my monkey. He's a lot of fun when you get into a good rhythm with him, although he's one of those characters I'm never quite sure I'm playing correctly no matter how much I enjoy him, and he's countered so hard by much more frequent characters like Reaper that it's rare you'll get a lot of value out of him, but he's always worth it. Winston has a gun that will either do zappy tickle damage, making all the other characters make hilarious buzzing sounds, or you can charge up a proper shot that I don't think I've ever actually landed in my entire life. It's interesting. Winston's ult is great. I can't remember what it's called, but basically he just goes bananas and starts swinging at everyone, but it's less about doing damage and more about knocking people all over the place. Again, unusual. I guess I feel like Winston is an incredibly sweet and charming all-rounder whose abilities are fine and there's always a better alternative, but you play him because he is Winston. He's also voiced by the bloke who voiced Itachi Uchiha in Naruto, which is just a bit of a mind blower. No, Sasuke, I do not want to fight you.
Play of the game.
If you play Reinhardt, you're either a fool or a coward, and I am no coward. Reinhardt, from the outside, seems quite dull. He's just a guy holding a shield and hitting things with a hammer. Kind of lame when you're in a game where many characters have so much more interesting utility, but Reinhardt really is proof that the most simple approaches can often be the best. He's a silly, jolly boy, and my favourite thing about playing Rein is that everyone loves Rein, especially the enemy Rein. There's no greater bond than with your opposing Reinhardt. The fight will rage around you and it will just be you two, swinging hammers at each other with a mercy sat on your shoulders, spamming voice lines at each other. Post-team chat, they'll always shout you out and say hello. Anyone on your team gets shitty with you and the other Rein will be like, "Silence! Your Rein is excellent!" The himbo energy is astounding. My boy, Rein. My favourite thing about playing a silly boy Reinhardt is that if you just run in and start beating the shit out of everyone successfully, your supports will start to weigh themselves quite heavily in your favour. You get a lot of resources when you're wiping the enemy team on cooldown, and the DPS get to just sit in the backline with a glass of wine and a bit of ham and cheese. I find it very hard to tilt on Rein. Even if I accidentally charge headfirst into a turret Bastion and get melted on the spot, even when you get neglected by the supporters, you can just whack up the turret and play a little bit more carefully. It's more likely that your own DPS get tilted, which is a strange one to say, but it is true. As I've demonstrated throughout the course of this ranking, when you're on DPS on this game and you're not really measuring up compared to the team, you do start to get a bit anxious. Sometimes this manifests in a small cry in the kitchen, but sometimes your DPS will just get really funny with you. They'll have 4 kills each while you have 17, having kept the point moving uninterrupted throughout, but they'll start sounding off in chat and telling you to stop running ahead despite the fact that you are doing an excellent job. In actuality, they're just upset because you've taken the supports on a little day trip into the front lines, a Mercy on one shoulder and an Anna on the other, and the DPS finally learn what it's like to have to be the ones who keep the point moving forwards while everyone else gets to go and have fun. I call that karmic Reintribution.
Play of the game.
Reaper is one of those characters for whom my ability to play well depends completely on my mental stamina. Like, Reaper is really strong and really effective. He's a tank buster, he does fat damage to tanks especially, and regenerates health from any damage he does, meaning enemies like Winston become moving health packs for him. But he's also got very loud footsteps and clearly announces himself whenever he teleports nearby. Gabriel is not shy, which will get you melted so fast if the enemy team are prepared to deal with you. I feel like when I'm up, well rested, fresh, washed and fed, I play a fatty Reaper, a filthy Reaper. My plays are delicious. Getting kills, flying out, healing up, bullying tanks, dropping the dirtiest ults on a cluster of unprepared enemy teammates, sweeping teams and getting play of the game with ease. When I'm tired and hungry and I've not had enough water and I've had a long day and I'm a bit distracted and I skipped my nap so I'd sleep better later, I walk into every match and feed so hard it tilts me off the game for good, or just switch to a different character I suppose. Either way, my Reaper capabilities flatline and I need to retreat and recharge. Reaper is super brawly and super fun. He's the kind of character you can have a really good time with if you make the best of his lifesteal abilities and prioritize your targets. He's fairly free to wreck shit and then use his Wraith ability to get out of trouble without too much of an issue, and he's one of the few squishies that can lose a sticky grenade, so I'm a big fan. Overall, my biggest gripe with Reaper is that I wish he was a little bit less of a grumblebee. Yeah, I know he's in infinite agony and he's left his family behind to pursue his goals, but I think he would be adorable in a little kitty cafe maid skin or a clown skin of some kind, something to liven up those cold winter nights when your main won't stop whinging about death.
Play of the game.
One of the best changes between Overwatch 1 and 2 of the few that there are is Orisa. Back in Overwatch 1, Orisa was dependable but so boring to play. She's always been a super defensive tank, putting up her little shields and using her bongo and boosting damage with her ult, but whenever I played her I felt like I was in prison. She was miserable, super easy to play, super easy to win matches with, on the basis that the rest of your team were also doing an average amount of effort, but so boring, so mindless. Orisa in Overwatch 2 is fantastic. She is such an improvement. Orisa's whole playstyle has been made way more aggressive. You're able to lead the team so much more effectively. When used well and properly boosted, Orisa is one of the only tanks that can basically just walk out in front of an enemy team and keep them all at bay single-handedly. Her javelin ability knocks enemies back and stuns them, but is deceptively hard to hit. I almost always miss, very embarrassing. She can also brace herself, turning a very obvious gold, which gives her way more hit points for a brief period of time, and she can spin her javelin, shoving enemies backwards and soaking up projectiles while you're granted a speed boost. You know, that's a lot of utility, and it would have been nice to see other tanks get a good and thorough rework between games, especially Roadhog. She does have a gun which does some damage, but honestly I prefer playing a melee Orisa and just getting in there as much as possible, and when I say melee I mean just walking right up to the enemy team and firing my gun directly into their face. I never said I was a good Orisa, just that I was a fun Orisa.
Play of the game.
I love Zenyatta's because they're always really sweet. I don't think I've ever been flamed by one, or I've never been flamed by a good Zenyatta. You always get flamed by the bad ones, but that's because they'd be insecure no matter which character they were playing. Any support talking shit with less than 1,000 heals is a support that should probably be keeping their hands off the Xbox Bluetooth keyboard, but I digress. Zenyatta, despite being a support, doesn't have a ton of scalable support utility, rendering him quite inflexible. He has 2 orbs, one that heals and one that does damage. Both of them will vanish after a period if Zenyatta does not have line of sight. Zenyatta can place the good orb on a teammate for gradual heals over time, or he can place the angry orb over an enemy and any damage done to them will be amplified. The healing orb is trickiest because it will stay on a teammate regardless of their HP, so if you want to be getting the most value out of it, you need to be moving it between teammates, and that's a lot to have to pay attention to. It also doesn't heal super fast, so often I'll put one on a teammate and they'll die anyway, which is whoops. This most frequently happens with the Widowmakers who spam I need healing when they're at 90% health. I'll drop a ball on them, they get headshot by the enemy Widowmaker and killed in one hit, and then they lose their rag at me in team chat for not healing them. I can't out-orb a sniper round to the skull, Widow. You should know that. Beyond that, Zenyatta's ult, which charges maybe once per team fight, is not so bad. It's called Transcendence. Pop this ult, you go gold, and you can float around your enemy team invincible, administering permanent heals. It's very useful in a pinch, but won't prevent insta-kill moves like Junkrat's Tire or the D.Va bomb. So beyond this, your role is basically just a third DPS, and Zenyatta can be filthy. I mean, Zen's a coin toss. I have sometimes left a game after having had the shit kicked out of me by, like, the tracer the enemy team sent to keep me off the field, if I hadn't switched, of course. Sometimes I finish a match with 30 kills and 12,000 healing. It really does depend. Also, the only time I have ever been recognized, either in-game or in public, was by a Zenyatta called Arthur. If you're watching this, thank you. I was so shy that I went out and played the worst game of my life, but I screenshot your message and I showed everyone, even my mum. We've reached second place now, we were so close to the end. I thought this video would be like a 12-minute thing, but I've really outdone myself, and we're at Junkrat. I love Junkrat. He is one of my favourites, and I've spent so much time playing as him that I am now really, really good, to the point where I even find him a little bit boring. He's the character I resort to when the match is going to shit. Other people hop on Sojourn, or Soldier 76, or Tracer, or Widow for some easy mindless kills. I hop on Junkie. He's my last resort character. Junkrat is one of those characters that can make a lot of noise, but can sometimes walk away with a surprising lack of damage and kills. Some days I feel like I'm absolutely wrecking the enemy team and I see I've got 4 kills and 2,000 damage, but I guess he functions pretty well at just keeping people away. Teams are a lot less tempted to go into small rooms or corridors or try and squeeze through doorways or past blind corners when they know you're waiting on the other side with a mine. So he's got some utility in applying pressure to choke points around the map, even if he's not actively contributing to kill counts. And Junkrat's just a lot of fun. You can use his mines to catapult yourself around, landing behind enemy teams and pulling his rip tire out. If he manages to detonate it before the opposing team destroy it, it will kill any squishy in one hit. You can get some naughty quad kills with it as well. I think my favourite thing about Junkrats is just how content they are. I've only ever been called out in chat by one, and that was back when I played Rein, so cast your mind back and consider why this poor Junkrat was so disgruntled with having to sit on point while we ran ahead. But on the whole, they're great, fun, awesome little dudes. Some people tilt on Overwatch, but Junkrats just junk harder. They just throw more bombs in more directions. I never get the sense that a Junkrat is having a bad time, and I'm happy for them. Or maybe that's just me.
Play of the game.
I avoided Widowmaker for the first full year of playing Overwatch. It was probably as many as 15 months before I ever picked her because I am a console player and I knew I would be dreadful at aiming with a sniper rifle on the sticks. Eventually I began to whittle my DPS trophies down and I only had a few to go, so I picked up Widowmaker for the first time and I was obsessed. And when you think about it, inflated sense of self-worth, judgment of others, too scared to be a part of the actual action, moderate skill and a high skill role with most players exhibiting a below average level of skill, no wonder she and I got along so well. Widowmaker's are brilliant because they're very separate from the action. Like Sombra, they're basically playing their own game mode, except this game mode is called Click the Heads, and being so far back means they get far less support, but also far less heat. But by the same metric, even if they get a lot of kills, they don't really contribute much to winning, since they are so rarely actually pushing point or capturing point. Widowmakers are the first to announce support diff or tank diff, and the first to go tracer when the enemy team sends out a better Widow than them. And I do mean it, there's very little as stressful in Overwatch, obviously, as as 1v1ing a slightly better Widow than you. Getting a headshot on someone after they've shit on you 5 times in a row and watching them rage quit is a feeling of euphoria I have never before experienced. I'm good enough now that I get told to touch grass. Genjis hate me, Moiras hate me. After only a month or so, Widow was my most played character by about 30 hours. I love playing as her, and I actually squeal whenever I get play of the game as Widdy. As someone who typically works through each character to try them out and go for each of their trophies, I played Widow for fun. I know, right? Absurd. My biggest mistake with Widow was trying a ranked game with her. I've played less than 10 ranked games in my life, but the lobbies are so fucked on that game that I ended up going against a bunch of people several ranks above me and one top 500, and despite doing alright amongst a team of people who literally did fine, I got so badly flamed in the text chat that I've not actually really touched her since. I am a bit scarred. Still, getting PTSD from playing your favourite character in a match that was doomed from the start is basically the Overwatch experience anyway. Damn, that was way longer than I thought it would be. Here, I imagine this would be a 10-minute extravaganza, and I have spent the better part of an hour talking about Overwatch. Christ, well, I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. Feel very bitterly about Blizzard as a company. I hate that they produce things I love, and I feel a lot of shame around enjoying Overwatch sometimes, despite it being a free-to-play game nowadays. This isn't even an apology or a mitigation for the video I've just made, just something I needed to get off my chest. I despise that one of my favourite games is made by a company I wish no longer existed. Here's to hoping that the Microsoft buyout pans out and things change over there, but the cynical part of me knows that it will never change. Still, thank you for watching. If you play Overwatch, let me know your favourite characters, and if you ever see me playing Overwatch, please say hello and know that you have made me scream and get super excited before I go into the enemy team and unceremoniously feed because I'm so shy. Have a good day, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.